Hello, nerds for humanity. We have a special show today. I have my collaborator, Ram, who he and I are working on the Nerds for Democracy board game, which we'll talk about maybe in the future, or we can give a little hint about sometime during this call. But during one of our game design meetings, a topic came up where it was I think Ron, you had said something along the lines of, oh, but Trump won by a landslide in 16, and I took issue with that. And then we didn't want to derail the whole team meeting. So then you said, hey, let's have a dedicated discussion about this. And I was like, dude, you don't have to ask me twice. If you want to talk politics, I know just the show to do it. So here we are. Welcome to the show, Ram.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show. So,
Yeah.
my I still stand by that assertion.
Mm.
Uh, the, the way victory is measured for a presidential election is electoral votes, not the popular vote.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you're what's the phrase, dicing something, if you're trying to be too pedantic,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the ratio of electoral votes, even if the whole state went because of one single person voting,
Mm-hmm.
it's still all the electors from that state went to one candidate. And
Mm-hmm.
that's all that matters in the end. And that was a huge difference in the end, like to more than 30 electors, if I remember.
Yeah. So let me put
More
on
than
the
five states,
screen,
right?
306 to 232.
There you go, 70 almost.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah. I mean, I think my position on this was I think Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania decided that election, as they likely will decide this one.
mm,
And he won those by 1%.
in
So it's
popular vote, right?
hmm?
1% in popular vote.
Yes, correct. He lost the national popular vote
Yeah,
by 3 million,
yeah.
but he won each of those crucial swing states by, I think, a total, if you add them all up, it's about 40,000 votes.
Mm.
And that doesn't scream landslide to me. I
Okay.
mean,
So if we have to compare popular, by the way, I wanted to put the disclaimer, right? So
mhm,
uh, I'm only talking about statistics and the electoral system. I am
mhm,
not endorsing any particular candidate, nor is any statement I make reflective of my preference for a particular candidate in the upcoming elections. Either we have many choices, way more than two candidates for president, and any statement I make today doesn't reflect. Please don't infer anything about how I might vote in the next election or how I did in previous elections. Okay, now that the disclaimer's gone, let's have the map back up, please.
okay. And I'll give my disclaimer, which is I am a lifetime never Trumper. I will not vote for him this election, nor have I ever voted for him. And I will be celebrating if he loses in November. So
Yeah,
my bias is on the table.
yeah. Okay, so that's good to know. And independent of that, I know the topic of discussion is not uh, why one should vote for one candidate or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So let's only talk about the structure of how the US elections are run and
Mm-hmm.
how margins are determined.
Mm-hmm.
You know that Nate Silver's website, I forgot the name. They 532 or 534?
538.
538, yeah. Project 538 or
Yeah.
something. So I used to follow that for a while. I haven't visited lately.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, the it's very obvious when you look at this particular screen, right? The
Mm-hmm.
what was needed to win and become president is right up at the top, and it's pretty clear already that this is a significant win. The US electoral system has been hacked by all kinds of politicians
Mm-hmm.
to game it such that these things are possible, right?
Mm-hmm. Wait. What can you just explain what you mean when you say that it has been hacked?
Hacked, not in the sense of like cyber criminal hacking or whatever, right? It's been gamed, let's put it that way. So redistricting, for example,
Mm-hmm.
uh, what's it called, gerrymandering. The
Mm-hmm.
whole concept of redistricting for political gain shouldn't exist, right? But it has.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, People have gamed the system by drawing lines between houses.
Yep.
So that's a very stark example of how the system has been hacked or gamed or whatever phrase you want to use.
So let's just dive into those three states. Wisconsin is
Um,
10 electoral votes. So he
um,
gets 10
yeah,
by winning Wisconsin 47.2 to 46.5. He gets all 10.
yeah. So like also look at the volume of votes, right? It's one and
Mm-hmm.
a half million or something.
Yep.
I can't see the text; it's too fine for me. But Wisconsin, in particular, the total electorate is like 3 to 4 millions, not
Mm-hmm.
more than that.
2.8.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there you go. Poor Gary Johnson.
Yeah. So he gets 23,000 more votes in Wisconsin, and he gets
That's
10 electorals.
that's despite a libertarian running. Like if Gary Johnson was not running, those would have gone Trump too, more likely that.
Yeah, maybe. In Michigan, he
Hmm.
wins by 11,000, about 10,000 votes.
Out
Gets
of
all
5 million.
16.
We should always remember out of how much, right? Like it's 11,000 out of 5 million.
Yeah, which is even a smaller margin when you put it that way.
Yeah.
A hair.
Yep.
He wins Pennsylvania by 25,000 votes, and he
Out
gets
of
20
60.
electoral votes. Yeah, out
Yeah.
of 6 million.
Yeah.
So how is this a landslide?
No, again, the landslide is right up top. It's like 70 electors. That's a difference. Now, if we were electing the president directly on the ballot, I agree with you. It's not even close to a landslide. In fact, it's so close. Uh, a vote here and there could actually swing it either way. But the other thing to notice on the map, right?
Mm-hmm.
The population centers where there is more density, larger cities and so on,
Mm-hmm.
are all blue for the most part, except Florida.
Yeah, even parts of Florida, she won.
Yeah,
Miami-Dade,
yep.
Broward, and Palm Beach. Hmm.
And you can see by distributed by like plotted by density, you'll see
Mm-hmm.
that constituencies where the population density is higher tend to go blue. Everything else is red.
Yeah.
Like if you look at this map, for example, what you're showing on the screen, if you add up the areas of all the blue circles and the red circles, the blue circles will be much higher.
If you add up the area, the red circles would be higher in terms of like the geographic space that
No, no,
they.
just the red color on the map. Like
Oh,
add
I
up
see.
the red
Yes.
color, add up all the
Yeah.
blue color.
So that to me, that's an argument that hey, in the parts of the country where most people live, they went for Hillary.
Yes, they did. But it's also a sign that they're not representative of the whole geography. Like people in the middle of the country also need good representation. Uh, if you and I, it's like the democracy for dinner joke, right? Like if three foxes and a hen go to vote on what's for dinner, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the foxes always vote to eat the hen, and there ends the matter, right?
Right. I mean, there are more foxes than hens. It's 75% fox. Why wouldn't they
Yeah,
decide?
So no, but that's what happens, right? Eventually, if you only, and typically, the more uh, densely
So
populated,
should the hen decide what to eat?
should the hen not have a vote at all,
They did have a vote.
and they got outvoted.
Well, that's democracy.
And this is democracy too, in a different structure. Not so intuitive to most people, but
Uh-huh.
with this system, I mean, there are warts all over. I don't deny that. But with this system, the less densely populated geographical areas also get representation.
You know, if we had another chart, if I plotted the gap by tax revenue collected, I
Mhm.
bet you blue would probably
Oh yeah,
also overperform.
yeah, because that's where most people are. That's where most commercial activity takes place. And whenever there's a transaction, there is tax to be
Right.
levied.
So the people that are paying the bills for the federal government are not getting what they wanted. They didn't get what they wanted in 16.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And that should be okay. We all should be okay with not getting what we want once in a while.
Yes. And you
It's
still
also
believe this is a landslide.
that is semantics, right? Like I said, it's very clear. The number of electors is what determines a president.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, I think the reason why I take issue with that word is it's not only choosing landslide versus whatever, 74 electoral vote difference or something like that. Um, the reason why I take issue with it is because it has been weaponized by the Trump kind
that's
of world.
I agree, but that's a secondary issue. Has to be dealt with independently of factuality of the statement itself.
Well, the other reason why, okay, so if we agree that he has weaponized it, then the second thing is it's just not accurate. As an example, if you said, "Oh, Tom, the Seattle Seahawks have been dominating the NFL because they're undefeated, but they actually only won every game in overtime by 1 point."
Hmm.
I would say, like, come on, that's not dominating. Like, yeah, they're undefeated, but they barely won every time. Versus if they were winning by like 20, 30 points every game, then it's like that's truly dominant with a capital D.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
So now think about this. Look at the New England Patriots, for example. Okay,
mhm,
we are stretching my football knowledge, but
that's
uh,
fine. Let's go with it.
let's go with it. So Patriots won like what 19 trophies so far, or some like huge number. Out
Oh,
of
in terms of Super Bowls, I don't know, like at least 5 or 6. Brady
Tom
has
Brady
like,
has six, Belichick has 6 or 8 or something.
right, yeah.
Number.
Oh, but you're saying like the franchise history?
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's
yeah,
probably
they have
even
like
more.
lots of, and they're like a pretty dominant in terms of if you look at the history of NFL,
Mm-hmm.
Patriots have lots of trophies every year, like
Okay, I'm
most years.
tracking you. Mm-hmm.
Similarly, like take basketball for example. Uh, the Bulls of the '90s, uh, they went like 6 on the trot or something, like 3-3 with a
Okay.
baseball break in between or something.
Uh-huh.
They were pretty dominant in the league for getting all those trophies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you break down the games, if you break down it by quarter and see uh, how many points did they win, how many went to like into the buzzer, like uh, how close were the games themselves. If you like scrutinize everything with a fine tooth comb, you will find again here or two that made the difference, or the buzzer beater uh, uh, jump shot that Jordan made.
Mm-hmm.
You get all those things in, and then you'll say, "Oh, that what a clutch player! There, he dominated the league and everything." And then you look at stats for like John Stockton or somebody who wasn't in Utah for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, he was. Hmm.
And they almost never got the title, did they?
So, what
But
is your point, Ram?
so my point is, for leagues, titles matter. Ultimately, you play for the title. It doesn't matter if you've crushed
Yes,
10 teams
I'm
in a row.
fine. I acknowledge that Trump won in 2016. Like, nobody stormed the Capitol in January 2017. You know, like we all accepted it. We were not happy with it, but we accepted it.
Yes.
Um, but to say, oh, this was a landslide when you lose the popular vote and when you win the electoral college by winning by 1% or less in like multiple states, it it's used as a cudgel against the Democrats to say, "Oh, I now have a mandate to do whatever the hell I want." When in reality, you barely won, so you should try and bring the country together, which obviously he didn't do.
So the president does have a mandate to do whatever they say they would do. Like that's the whole point of the manifesto and promising things to do, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, they will have to veer off the path here and there due to circumstances. But the whole point of us electing people is more people, or again, we're getting into semantics, but more people chose a particular candidate because they thought what they said they would do was the right thing to be done for the country.
Well, 3 million less people chose him.
Yeah, I agree. But
So more he won more states that gave him a winner take all electoral vote.
yes,
Okay.
there was
That's
more representation where it mattered.
yeah, okay.
Right? So again, going back to our earlier point, like if you say, oh, the coastal people did not get a voice or do not get a voice and all that, like you can translate that to any number of ways. You're saying tax base is more in the blue circles. Yeah, does that mean the billionaires should start electing people and all of us should sit home? No, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that if you look at where people live, if you look at counting every person the same, irrespective of their wealth,
Hmm.
Hillary won.
Yeah, but that's not how the president is elected.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Um, so if you want to say it was an electoral college landslide, almost as big, still less than Obama's win, then it's
Fine,
a, okay, sure, kind of a landslide with a lowercase l.
which is fine. Like
Yeah.
if someone else won with a bigger margin, great, good for them. The only point here is in 2016, the Republicans, with Trump as their candidate, did win where it mattered by a significant margin. There was no opportunity to debate whether it went this way or that due to any external factors, or whether it was bad in this state or that county. Or no, you can't say that anymore. This is decisively swinging in one direction,
Mm.
right?
Okay, now we have a comment from the live chat. By the way, William mentioned your volume was a bit low, so I boosted your mic volume. You don't need to do anything, Ram.
Awesome.
But folks in the chat, let me know if you can hear Ram better. So Vaughn had a comment. He's saying, I think you guys are justifying proportional representation. If Georgia has 10 electoral votes and one candidate wins by 10%, then the winner of that state should get 6 electoral votes and the loser should get 4. What do you think about that, Ram?
So let's see. This comes up fairly. This and ranked choice voting both come up fairly frequently whenever elections are discussed, and we should like properly do a statistical analysis at some point,
Mhm.
and like back test it with data from prior election years. How that would,
Mhm.
right? So again, my point is the way the system is set up right now, it is meant to reward and consider geographies, not people.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter how many people live. Let's say there's only three people in some state, uh, and whether it has one or two electoral college votes, If two of those three people vote one way, all those votes are going that way, right? But
Hmm.
those three people still need representation. Just because we have 3 million people in LA doesn't mean we get to decide what's good for them. The other point is local elections, state elections, and federal elections are giving us different options, right?
Hmm.
So most issues are local. The federal elections are meant to help us choose candidates who are going to work for everybody, what we think is good for the whole country, and that includes our region, right?
Yes.
So when you distribute votes, when you do this thing, we fall into the same uh, distribution mechanism that we're doing here, right? If you break open that blue circle, that's not like 100% of people in LA and New York voted for Hillary in 16. No, that's also pretty close, actually, if you look at it. Not as close as the cumulative vote, but it's still close.
Well, actually, luckily, we can zoom in. Hold on
Yeah,
one
are you
second.
able to click into that big circle and see?
So, like LA, what county? LA County, 70 to 22.
There you go. That's pretty skewed. Actually, it's not as close as I remember it being.
And your boy Gary Johnson got 2%. San Francisco, like let's look at Santa
Did
Clara County, 73-20. I mean,
did
yeah, you're
Johnson
right. There
win?
were some people in these cities that
Yeah.
like Trump, but very few.
Likewise, if you click into one of the red counties, that's also not like solid red, right?
Okay,
There's
let's
still a
take a look.
distribution there too.
Let's take a look. Hold on. How do I so here? Oh, let's go to one of the red places. Um, 50 Evan McMullen. Wow. Okay, interesting. Actually, outside of Salt Lake City, Utah looked pretty hardcore. 80 to 9, 79% to 8.8.
Yeah, look at Wyoming. Actually, you're still in Utah. Go to Wyoming.
Okay, hold on. Let me zoom out here. Wyoming,
Yeah, it's right up top. Yeah.
70 to 20, 65. I mean, aside from Teton County,
Yep.
the rest of it is pretty skewed red.
And similar skews as
Mhm.
California.
I see. Yes, I agree. But there's just less people in Wyoming, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the number of seats they get is also proportionally less, or the number of electoral college votes they get is also proportionally less. That ratio should also change. We should have like a national debate on that. Uh, that's not for us
Yeah.
for now,
I,
though.
I just like right now, both of us live in California and our votes are nobody's competing for them. Not even Democrats.
I've heard so many people tell me that their vote doesn't matter, and that's such a sad state of affairs, right? It's like it doesn't matter which way I vote. I know the state is going to go blue,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and they withdraw from the process because of that, right? They'd be
And
more active.
do you disagree with them? Do you think that their vote does matter?
It matters actually. I mean,
Why?
if these things are cumulative, as in if enough people think that their vote matters and they do vote, then it'll swing the needle. Yeah, but again, what
I
we have
don't
to
know.
look.
Like if a bunch of people, if we had 100% turnout in California, all of our electoral votes are going to go to Harris, irres- irrespective of whether we have the current turnout or more. That's
That
just
seems to be the most likely outcome based on more
yeah.
many models and predictions. Uh, Again, my point is until the election happens, you cannot predict that unless many people who might have voted red may not be participating because of this myth that their vote doesn't count in California.
Yes. And then I would say if we had proportional distribution of our, I mean, it's in California, it's 55 electoral votes that are basically dead votes. They
Yeah.
don't, nobody contests them. But even if, let's say, Trump had a chance to pick up just 10% of California's votes, like, you'd see him more. He would be less focused on, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania or whatever. And instead, this whole election is coming down to a few states, and everybody's talking about fracking because you have to if you want to win Pennsylvania, but nobody's talking about issues that maybe Californians care about.
Yeah.
Um,
So think about this, right? Like if let's assume we had the can you put that comment up again, the Georgia 6-4 thing? Let's say we had that option. We had the way the electoral points would be distributed by vote share, right? Uh, do the candidates have the bandwidth? Do incumbents have the bandwidth to go to every county that matters to make sure that that vote gets in?
No, they can't be everywhere.
So
But
they have to prioritize anyway, right?
right now, there's 0% chance they'll campaign in California. Other than fundraising, they never
Yeah.
come to California. When was the last time you saw a rally in California?
No, that's on them. They should come. They should try to win our vote, right?
Well, I don't think they should, because they know the game. The rules of the game are that why bother?
No, the rules of the game are 55 votes are at stake. Like just
In a
Hillary.
winner take all situation, even though I hate Trump, I would not, if I were on his team, I'd be like, do not spend any time in California other than raise money from like that one county in Southern California.
Yeah, that's very short-sighted. And again, we unfortunately get a very filtered view. Uh, what's the opposite of rose tinted? We get that
Cynical. Mm-hmm.
very very filtered, focused view of news.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll dig into the reasons for that polarization and all that also. But one of the things is exactly what we just went over, right? If uh, candidates have to appeal to their primary base, that increases polarization over and over, and it reinforces that presumption and media fodder that you have to be rabid left or rabid right to actually get past the primary. At that point, most neutral voters have already made their mind up. They'll, uh, what's going on?
Nothing.
Okay.
You were talking?
Yeah, I was saying, if candidates do not fight for our votes, it's their fault.
I disagree. I think if candidates aren't fighting for California votes, it's because the way the rules are written, it's irrational for them to fight for our votes. Why would Trump spend time talking to you and me versus spending time in Pennsylvania?
He should spend time in Pennsylvania too. They are people and voters too. But my point is, this is short-sighted, right? If you invest now, maybe that delta will go from, what was it, 40%, 50%, down by 10%, right? It'll get closer and closer every election cycle.
Okay. Meanwhile,
Eventually,
you just lost the race.
not necessarily, right? What in this day and age, the campaign speech you give in Bakersfield is still good for Pennsylvania, unless you fine tune it to such a level of granularity that only people within that 10-mile radius can make sense of it. Most
I
things.
think
See, I'll plug the game here if you're fine with that. Okay, one of the uh, game mechanics that we designed into it is specifically a policy focus and these things, right? We, why did we do that? Like we want people in general we as voters want candidates who do the right thing, right? Right thing for everybody. So we want them to focus on policy. We want them to focus on the broader, greater good. We
Yes,
don't have like focus.
that's why we designed the game that way. Um, what I'm saying is that's not how the big game is played.
No, it's a very long game. People should not forget that. If you optimize only for this election, like even if you invest, let's say 10% of your campaign fund into making sure the delta in the states where you have near zero hope uh, becomes smaller and you start getting some hope, you have to reduce that uh,
I
over
think
time.
you might be assuming a time horizon that is not aligned with the individual candidates' incentives. Like Donald Trump does not care about, and neither does Harris. They don't care about the 10 to 20-year trend. They're looking to win in November.
Which is that's the bad aspect of their candidacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that has to change, and it'll only change if we make noise. We as voters, we bring it up and surface it appropriately. That's when it starts mattering, right? Otherwise, they're playing their game, we are playing our game. Everybody's doing their own thing. Why have elections at all in the end?
All right, we have some questions in the live chat, Ram. Let's hit them. One's from William Lewis, who says, "Is the argument that if we kept the electoral college, but on a county level, the candidate would be forced to have input on a broader set of issues?"
I
I
agree.
would like that.
Yeah, I agree with William on this. That's effectively what I'm trying to communicate. Thanks for saying it much better, William.
Yeah, no, then we're all three of us are in agreement on that. Now the likelihood of that happening would be that you'd have to get your state legislature to vote. Let's take California. Do we really think the Democratic Party in California or the Republican Party in whatever, Alabama, is going to say, oh, yeah, rather than all of our electoral votes going to our majority party, we're now going to have it divided up?
Yeah,
I mean, I know why we want it, but I don't think the parties in power want that.
whether the parties are in power or not, it's in their interest too, actually. This shouldn't become a monopoly, right?
Okay,
Eventually,
so let's say you're a member of the Democratic Party and
yeah,
you are in the California State Assembly.
yeah.
You really going to vote to give electoral votes to the Republicans?
If they win it, yeah, that's the honest thing to do.
Do you think that would be politically good for you?
In the long term, yes.
Well, more power to you, Ram. I don't think most politicians are like
I
that.
agree. I agree that most people don't see beyond the next election, or in some cases, the next major election, right? But again,
Mhm.
uh, we keep hearing about crime in the party offices, how campaign funds are mismanaged, and these kinds of mismanagement and misaligned priorities
Mhm.
will go down if parties have to actually fight for their right to represent us.
So
Right?
let's give an example.
Mhm.
Let's say we are from the red state of Tennessee and
Mhm.
we're in the Tennessee State Assembly. Right now, all 11 electoral votes go to Republicans every year.
Mm.
And if we were like, oh no, we should have it proportionally distributed, that's like saying, oh, we're going to give the Democrats 3 of our electoral votes.
Yeah.
We're going to vote to help our political enemies.
So again, this language doesn't help anybody, right? They're not enemies
Well,
to
that is the
anybody.
language that they use. I
I,
mean,
I,
they
I
use worse language. Trump uses worse language.
yeah, like don't get me started on that now. But it's on us. Somebody should make sure that that's to say that that's not the way things are supposed to be. Like just because a candidate, like, tell me this, Tom. Uh,
Yes.
In one of your portfolio companies, somebody
Hmm.
comes for a job
Hmm.
and they start talking like Trump. Would you hire them?
No.
They start talking like Sanders or Harris or even Clinton, who was a very, very good speaker. Hillary Clinton.
Or
Not,
Buttigieg. If they talk like Buttigieg or Romney, I would be like, okay, yeah, well,
yeah,
it seems like a smart person.
yeah. So most major candidates, you will be able to clip a few statements they made during the primaries, which make them sound extremely uncool and unfavorable, right? Uh,
Yeah. Or in Trump's case, in the general election, you could clip him as well.
Yeah, and like people say, any clip makes him look like
Right.
that.
I mean, at random.
Yeah,
But the problem is you're asking me as a uh, investor in technology
yes.
companies how I evaluate talent. That
No,
I
no,
don't represent most voters,
no, no,
right? That's not how most voters
no,
choose.
no. I'm asking about language and choice and who sets the rules up. You are giving somebody a job, you set the rules up, and you also confirm with general societal norms. We as voters are giving candidates a job to do for us. We are paying them. The president gets paid
Hmm.
what, 400K
Hmm.
a year? That's
Hmm.
coming from your and my taxes. They are working for us. We should be setting our foot down and saying this is not cool. If we don't do it, just like bad investments run away, bad candidates run away too.
Yes, I think the rub there is the current system does reward primary voters with outsized influence on the outcome because of the way the
That's
game is
that
written.
is yes, that is because the people have already given up on California and Alabama and Wisconsin and Utah. Not Wisconsin, Wyoming and Utah. Wisconsin is still
Mhm.
a contested state.
Yes. And so if you look at the types of people who participate in primaries, they are often not representative of the majority of the population.
Likely, again,
Yeah.
uh, winning matters, right? So
And
the most
so,
credible candidate.
Trump's language is celebrated in the primaries. He
Hmm.
was not penalized at all. He
Like
was rewarded for it.
Trump has been a public figure for a few decades already, right?
Mhm.
Before he started the presidential campaign, maybe 2 years before he started the campaign, uh, versus after he started the campaign, show clear contrast in how he communicated with the public. Whether he was, as alleged, he was swindling money and fooling people on projects or not, the
Mhm.
way he presented himself in the public, trying to build an image, changed, right? Uh,
Mhm.
uh, so why did it change? It's like obviously he didn't become this kind of a person who throws paper towels at hurricane victims and whatnot. Right? Maybe he was always that, and he got an opportunity. We got an opportunity to see that now, but maybe he's doing all that to rile up the base, polarize it, to make sure to lock in some percentage of votes. We
Yeah.
don't know, right?
I think having had the opportunity to talk to a lot of Trump voters over the years,
Mm.
one thing that I've noticed is they really appreciate his anti-establishment, kind of stick it to the institutionalists and elites, right?
And
And so they reward him for that.
yes, and this is an example of a long term vision. This kind of mindset did not come up in like one election or two, right?
Hmm.
This point of view has been like fed, irrigated, whatever else the metaphor you want to go for, it was made to grow over the years, over the decades, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We have to do something similar, right? We can't resign and say my vote doesn't matter. And if we keep saying and perpetuating that, the candidates will say his vote doesn't matter. Why should I go appeal to him? And then
Um,
the candidates don't come to me, so why should I vote? Like the whole thing goes into a vicious spiral downwards. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the only way you change this if there is a national movement for proportional representation. I don't think we can expect any state to unilaterally disarm. I think you'd have to say, look, all states should do this, and we're going to hold our politicians accountable for pledging to vote for proportional distribution as long as a majority of states adopt it.
Yeah,
And then that would change the game.
yeah,
But to say to California, well, you should split up your votes, I'm sure the Californians would say, well, what about all the red states? They're not splitting up their votes.
yeah. And that's a fair point. We should discuss on ranked choice voting if we get the chance.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, uh, because today's discussion started with my claim that it was a landslide, and
Yes.
my claim was specifically tied to what matters for a presidential election is
Mm-hmm.
a decisive victory in the electoral college with electoral votes, not with a popular vote. That is well established, right? No debate on that.
No, I still think we disagree on whether that was a landslide. I know you're calling it a landslide. I understand your argument that, well, look, he won by so many electoral votes. And I would say, well, he won each of those electoral votes by a very thin margin. So I don't
Margin
consider that
doesn't
a landslide.
matter in the end. It's like sports titles, like the examples you gave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. Ultimately, what matters is who's lifting the cup, if you get the title or not. It's binary.
You
You do
know,
not
you
do
know, Ram,
proportional, like this is how many points you scored in the season versus this.
I think it's more than semantics, and here's why. Former President Trump used that term as justification for saying they're against us. They, the establishment, the media, the left, is trying to always rig things against me. Look, I won by a landslide and they're blocking me every step of the way. So it's not just semantics. He's using it as justification and he's misinforming people to
That's
make them think that they were robbed
yeah,
when
I
they
agree.
weren't.
I agree with you on all of those points. And saner people will see through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ultimately it doesn't matter if he was sabotaged or not. What matters is if people think he's going to do a good job or not.
Like, let me ask you a question, Rob. How many hardcore Trump supporters do you think know that he won those crucial swing states by less than a percentage point?
Um,
I don't think they know.
Again, you know where I live. You know the demographic distribution around here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so you know the kind of bias and skew any sample I collect involves. Uh, so it's not the Trump vote. The people who have declared themselves as Trump voters. I have met a few actually. Uh, Despite that, I don't think it's a sufficient sample for me to say anything on this.
Okay, well, I will say that having watched many Trump rallies in their entirety, I think most of his supporters think that he won by a actual landslide, not an electoral count
Mm.
landslide. And actually, Jackson in the live chat asked us a question saying, hey, well, hold on. Did Biden win by a landslide?
Yeah,
No, he barely won. But
no,
you don't see Democrats coming around saying that he won by a landslide.
no. He actually had a significant electoral margin also.
Yeah, but I don't think that was a landslide.
No. The point is they don't claim that as a landslide, except to counter whenever Republicans say that Trump won by a landslide.
Yeah, so we're in agreement that Biden did not win by a landslide.
No, no, no. I say Biden also won by a
Oh,
landslide.
you think Biden won by a landslide?
Yeah, Trump did. Biden did too.
Oh, okay.
Because the
Well, you're consistent.
electoral vote distribution, there you go. Almost same numbers too, right?
Yeah, but I would say Biden did not win by a landslide because he barely won Pennsylvania by 2 percentage points or 1.2 percentage points. He barely won Michigan. He
And that,
barely won Wisconsin.
yeah,
So I would not consider, even though I voted for him. I don't think that was. I mean, it took us forever to even figure out who the hell won. So there's
yeah.
no way that's a landslide.
How long it took doesn't matter. Ultimately, we have the results. The results speak for themselves. Biden did win by a landslide. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, okay, well, I appreciate that you're consistent. As
So
am
again,
I.
yeah, no. Again, see, this is what matters, right? The
Mhm.
uh, why people vote is different for different people, different individuals, not just different groups. Uh, and why we have the system we have, is it still serving us? That's a very good topic for all voters to discuss and spend some time on. We,
Mhm.
if we need a change in the system, which to me it looks like we do need a change, right? And I think you
Mhm.
agree with that too. We do need a change in the system, and it's
Mhm.
not going to happen because some participants uh, hoping to be monopolists at some point are disgruntled. It will happen because we, as the ultimate benefactors, have to do something about it.
Yes.
Right?
I agree with that.
And there's
Um,
no silver bullet, right? You can't say the only way this can change is, like, we have to try a few things. Some of them will work better than others. Eventually, we'll get results.
so Jeremy in the live chat, who's a channel member, thanks for your support, Jeremy. He's saying, "Hey, well, hold on, Tom. You can't paint with such a broad brush. The people that go to the rallies, they don't represent most Trump voters. Most Trump voters know that he won by a very thin margin." Let me show you some data on that, Jeremy. This is a poll by Johns Hopkins of whether about political violence in this election. But what's interesting is there are 30% of Republicans who believe still in 2024 that Trump won. 1 out of 3 Republicans think that he won
The last election, yeah,
in
I saw
2020,
this. I saw this from a
right?
different source, and it just boggles my mind how effective media manipulation can be.
So now that's not a question about the 2016 margin, but I bet you those people think that he won by like massive margins in
Yeah,
2016. They're just in like, we're always winning. Everything's rigged against us.
yeah,
Heads I win, tails you cheated.
yeah. So some people are always like that, and it's incumbent upon the rest of the population to
Mhm.
also step up and give sane arguments in a sane structure, to give them a chance to also think about something else. Here's what happens: creaky wheel gets all the grease, uh, so everybody tries to be creaky and cranky, and that drives away the sane voices in the discussion. And eventually, what we end up with is a polarized state and disinterested populace.
What is your opinion of this statistic, Ram?
Okay, how close do you think the United States of America is to another civil war? Not close enough.
You see the bottom row?
Yep, I do.
I mean,
And
this
by
is
the way, so sorry for interjecting, but I wanted to get this out, especially with reference to that bottom row.
mhm.
Since independence, India has been the only major democracy where there has been a peaceful transfer of power uh, after every election. The US had gunfights at some point to decide the winner,
Mm.
right? Of course, it
Mhm.
had a much longer history, so who knows, such things might still happen in India too.
Mhm.
But at least, uh, it's not unprecedented for this to spin out of control. Put the chart back up again, please.
Okay, hold on one second. Oh, I might have lost that tab.
That's okay. You remember though, right? Basically, the thing it represents is that there's a lot of people who do not trust the system as it is.
And who believe that it will result in a violent civil war.
Yeah, and we saw an example of or a precursor to that on the 6th of January, didn't we?
Yeah. Okay, I found it again. And so let me share a screen. Hold on.
But there's another comment I just noticed. I want us to talk about that too.
Okay.
Low Mansfield. Like after this, let's go to that.
Mm-hmm. So this is why I get triggered when people say Trump won by a landslide, because they also say that he won by those. Some of those same people say he won by a landslide in 2020. And they feel that their country was, quote, taken away from them.
Yeah.
And they feel like if they don't win in 2024, according to their leader, former President Trump, quote, you're not going to have a country anymore, unquote.
Yeah.
So that's why for me, it's like, well, hold on. He did not win by a landslide in 2016. He sure as hell didn't win by one in 2020. So please put down the AR.
Yeah. So those are independent. I see where you're coming from. I finally see where you're coming from. You're saying statements like the one I asserted are used as fodder for some other manipulation.
Yes.
So we should fight the manipulation, not the statement.
Fair enough. All right. You were saying you wanted to call out a Lou Mansfield comment.
Yeah,
Which one? The last one he made about the binary thing or the one before
yeah,
that?
the binary thing.
Okay, Lou, who's also a channel member, thank you for being a supporter of the channel, Lou. If Ram is arguing the presidential election win is a binary matter, then that negates the landslide descriptor. It's either a win or a loss,
Yeah,
regardless of how much or how little.
I agree with him. Uh,
So
that's
then
true.
it's not a landslide.
No, a landslide doesn't. It doesn't help for you to have won by a landslide. If you won, you won. The
Yes. Yes.
title's yours. The job is yours. Do the damn job well. Don't throw paper towels at people. But
Also, this is great because I found another area where we might disagree.
mhm,
So I'll disagree with you, Ram, on this one, which is I do think it matters the margin by which you won. There are some very narrow victories, which to me require the winner to operate as much as a centrist and a bipartisan kind of compromiser as possible. However, there are other victories which are more decisive, where it's like, oh no, the country is saying they really want this guy. Like I would say Obama in '08 had a mandate to make some big changes, like with the Affordable Care Act or getting us out of Iraq. Whereas Biden, actually, I would somewhat challenge him to say, man, you barely won. And yet you want to like eliminate student loans and do all these things that I think a lot of conservatives and center right would be very upset about. That you should probably govern more like a centrist because your margin was so narrow.
wasn't that his visiting card his whole career that he was a centrist?
It was, but that's not how he governed,
Yeah, in the yeah, I agree.
as president.
Yeah,
I think a
but
lot of us were kind of surprised. We're like, whoa, I thought we elected kind of centrist Biden.
Yeah, and so this again brings to light the power a president has in a system that we have, right? Senators
Mhm.
and Congress people are actually collectively much more powerful than the president. That's where our attention should be. Get them to draft better bills and laws, get them to debate on topics that make sense, get them to be honest and behave in our interests. Presidents will follow. So presidents don't, they can't just veto every bill that comes on their desk, right? They can push some based on their agenda. They're an executive. They just do the get things done. What
Mhm.
things should get done is determined elsewhere. They don't get to determine all of what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think the challenge with that argument is that the current media business model rewards controversial, emotional, horse race, heavyweight fight content. It
And
does
we should
not
not,
reward.
and we should not feed that cycle, right? We should try to stay away from it. And
I agree. I
I
agree. I mean, you're talking on the Nerds for Humanity channel. I know about not being, getting into the details, but there's also a reason why this channel gets a few hundred views per video. If I made a video about, how Trump is crazy, or, all the times that Kamala has said this or that, and took it
yeah,
out of context, I'd get thousands and thousands of views. Like that's we have to acknowledge that that's what people respond to. Like those algorithms are giving people what their primal brain wants.
yeah, that's like the TikTokization of politics.
Mm-hmm.
No, by the way, there's another comment that is worth talk. I was going to bring this up. The Bush v. Gore, the Florida one. You remember that?
Oh, yes, I do. I remember Gore conceding
Not
and
a
not.
landslide.
Oh, you're saying that's another landslide
No,
or no?
not a
Oh, that
landslide.
was not a landslide. Yes,
That's what happens when people concede without contesting.
that's how it should be, right? Like if you lose, you should concede.
If you're sure you lost, if you're not sure, you should make sure that you lost.
Yeah,
It's not yours to give away.
if there was anyone who would have been justified to say they're stealing the election, it would have been Al Gore, not
Yeah,
Donald Trump.
Gore should have done that. He did not.
Yeah.
That's my
But,
point.
I think his argument was, I don't want to tear this country apart.
No,
And
so intentions apart, that's exactly what happened because he conceded. Faith in the system is restored when you see the system working, not when you see people withdrawing from the system and playing their own side little game of I concede, you concede.
mm, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there were that many people who said, "Oh, I'm going to become apathetic now because Gore Gore should have won." Do you think so?
Again, you made this point earlier too. The general perception of how the voter base reacts to similar events is completely different.
Mhm.
Uh, Trump and Biden won by the almost exact same margin. One side characterizes it as a landslide victory, the other one doesn't bother to mention it even as a footnote.
Mhm.
So, how people react is that doesn't matter. What matters is that set a precedent where someone should have contested, made sure the systems were working. They did not.
Ram, we're close to an hour. I think we should wrap up because I
We
have to
should.
do. Yes, but maybe we could wrap up with some thoughts on this choice facing us in November. Either A, like, what do you think are the most important issues, or B, like, what are your predictions for what you think is going to happen?
Okay, so again,
Or you could do both.
no, the first thing is immigration is actually an issue we should talk about. Uh, the, I know I'm an immigrant. Uh,
And I am the son of immigrants.
yeah, so we both are in a way, not direct natives, right? You
That
are
most of the country are not direct natives.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that sets the discussion rolling. So we should discuss that at some
Okay.
point. Immigration is actually a much bigger issue, having a lot of economic impact at the grassroots level. That's not being seen, and it's also being uh, couched by technological advancements causing similar issues, or other financial system causing uh, financial harm to people. So things are getting conflated. Immigration is getting thrown under the bus. The other issue is during COVID, some 3 trillion, or I forgot the number now, 2 trillion was injected into the economy. Uh, that level of fiscal discipline needs more debate. We should talk about that too. I wish candidates explained all those much better and their positions on how they would deal with those situations better. All I hear is more one liner punchlines. So I don't think either candidate is doing a great job communicating how they would, what their position is on these issues, and what their proposed solutions are. So those I think are
Yeah.
big issues that actually matter.
Let me present a counterpoint on that. I agree with you that those are crucial issues, and they are very nuanced and important to understand, like a lot of perspectives. I will recount a conversation I had this week with a MAGA friend of mine, and he was railing about, oh, the border. They're pouring over the border, and they're eating cats and dogs and all this kind of thing. And I said,
How did that even get into the discourse? That
because this person is very um, activated by that kind of language. And I said to him, well, look, if you want to talk about comprehensive immigration reform, we should talk about the current asylum process that is legal. It is legal. And I tell you what, Ram, I lost him at comprehensive immigration reform. He said, but what about the cats and dogs? And what about they're taking all our jobs?
yeah,
And I was like, hold on. Well, what do you think about H-1Bs? He's like, I don't know about all this stuff,
yeah.
but I'm just for Trump. So my point is that voters need to reward candidates who are willing to go into the nuance and the details, and sometimes say things that take more than like 140 characters. And today, voters don't reward that.
Without typos, I should add.
And all caps. So, like, as much as I find Trump like gross, I feel like he's playing to his audience, and his audience loves him for it.
So it's past the hour. I have other
Mm-hmm.
thing coming up, but I want to close with this point. He's not only playing to his creating and building up an audience. That's the
Mm-hmm.
point most people seem to be missing. The way his behavior changed was not because, or again, my statement on this, what I posit here is, it did not change because the audience was already like that. It is because he realized that he could cultivate an audience by doing something. That is his branding, and that is his process of cultivating an audience for himself.
Yes.
That's very active, strategic move, in my view.
Ram, we're going to let you go. One last question. What is your prediction for November 7th, 2024?
I'm going to buy a large bucket of popcorn. That's my prediction.
Oh, man. And do you think it will be a peaceful transfer, or do you think there will be violence after?
It'll be a peaceful transfer. I do not foresee, even if an event like the last January 6th is attempted again, I hope we are better prepared to deal with it than we were
Yeah.
last time.
Well, thank you, Ram. We'll have to have you back on again to talk about Nerds for Democracy, the board game, because I
Oh
know we're
yeah,
getting.
we should plug. We didn't get the time to plug the game properly. Let's do it some other time. We have
Yeah,
so many topics to talk about.
I think we could do a future episode where we do a live gaming session where we actually play it. We could invite some other people from the Nerds for Humanity audience
Yeah.
to play with us.
Once it's closer to
Yeah.
production, I will
Mm-hmm.
make sure we do that. Uh,
Yep.
Meanwhile, can I request your audience to also suggest topics for us to discuss next?
Yes. Put those in the chat, folks, if you're watching this on replay. And we'll try and pick those up in the next time we have Ram on the show. Thanks, Ram.
I'm prepared with slides again.
All right. Sounds
Bye.
good, my friend. Take
Bye.
care, buddy. All right. That was Ram. Speaking of the immigration things, let me tell you guys another story. I was in a meeting this week and I was talking to someone who is in Silicon Valley, and they have many, many years of experience in software development. They have a master's degree in computer science from Stanford, and they are not a U.S. citizen. They are on H-1B. And they said to me, hey, I really would like to start a company in America around technology, but I can't because I am on a visa that requires an employer to sponsor me. And I was thinking to myself, how is this possible that they got an advanced degree from one of the best universities in the country in one of the most strategic areas of expertise in the economy? And this country is making it so hard for this person to start a company, basically illegal. And yet we have unlimited asylum applications, which we know 95% are not approved. So it's like a freaking mile wide loophole. So I'm one of those rare people who supports more legal but strategic immigration around areas that will make the country's economy stronger and that help increase our supply of talent that we don't have enough of. But neither candidate will probably be talking about that because that's a comprehensive immigration reform. Closest would be maybe Kamala, but you rarely hear her talking about H-1Bs or merit-based immigration. You did hear Trump talk about it years ago, but he really focuses now on building the wall and the cats and dogs kind of conversation. Yeah, Trump did on the All In podcast. He said, "Oh yeah, everybody that gets a college degree should get a green card," but then he retracted it a day later because I think his base was not down with that. So he's kind of beholden to his base. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 takeaways from my conversation with Ram. But before I do that, I want to give some shout outs to the people who keep this channel going. And that is our channel members. So if you're watching this and you enjoyed this conversation, you want to see more like this, do me a favor and become a channel member. And if you don't have the $1.99 to be a channel member, you can also just like and share this stream. That's another way to help. And of course, you should subscribe. That's free. And then you can subscribe to the Nerds for Humanity email newsletter where I summarize these hour-long live streams into like a one-page kind of blog post that you can just read very quickly and stay up to date. So let's start with thanking our biggest channel supporter, a member of the Nerds for Humanity. Oh, we got to play the going away music. Hold on. There it is. All right. Hopefully you can hear the music and my voice at the same time. All right. So, who are these channel members? Soldier 1, member of the Nerd Cabinet, our biggest supporter of all. You could become a member of the Nerd Cabinet as well. just click the join link on YouTube. Members of the Nerd Congress: Kristen Slevin, Bike, Zig PC. Next level down, our local leadership, city council members: Gene, David, DK, Jackalego, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, Yang, Dean, Galessa, J Parent, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Jeremy, Mickey, Yoda, Jackson, Unkiyu. And then we have our registered nerds. Starting at $1.99 a month, I'll scroll through these in order of their length of membership. All right. So, 3 takeaways for you all. Takeaway number 1 is, I think Ram and I really went back and forth on, was it a landslide or not? And I think there was a moment in the conversation where I was more effective at communicating that, look, I'm not trying to argue over semantics. I'm trying to stop a point of misinformation that Donald Trump uses to rile up his supporters to make them think that anything that happened that's against him is some gigantic fraud. So that's takeaway number 1. Takeaway number 2 is, I think everybody, I wonder how, if you took a national referendum, how many people would be in favor of the current winner-take-all system versus a proportional representation. Now, it could be that small states would probably not be fans of it, but I don't know, like, if you live in a small state, are you okay with, basically anybody who doesn't vote for the 51% winner, like, having their vote be worth nothing? I don't know. I bet you if you asked everyone, if all states move to proportional representation at the county level, county winner take all, I bet we would all, like, vast majority would be for it. Unfortunately, like, it would require this immense coordination where every state legislature has to approve it, and they'd all have to do it at the same time. So how would that work? Because, like, if you're, let's say you're a California state assemblyman, you might be like, hey, look, I agree with that, but I don't want California to give up our electoral votes to Republicans if the red states, they stay winner take all. Yeah, I don't know. Like, this is maybe where the Forward Party or the Institute for Political Innovation or some broader group would have to say, look, we want every state assembly member to sign this pledge. And if we get over a certain number of states that agree and you violate that pledge, there'll be electoral consequences for you. I don't know if any group is strong enough to do that. I mean, it's the beauty and the challenge of our system is that it's really hard to change it, which is probably a good thing, but it's also really hard to improve it. So that's point number 2, how the winner take all system is kind of, in my opinion, unfair. Ironically, it was meant to make it more fair to the small states, but now we've got this weird situation going on where the big states, like, have no voice at all. And then I guess point 3 is Ram and I are working on a board game called Nerds for Democracy, and it's pretty fun. We've been play testing it a bunch, and it has a little bit of Monopoly, but also a little bit of, like, charades or interactive kind of element where there's debates. And actually, as we were talking, I'm thinking, wow, I wonder if we should capture this battleground state dynamic. So we'll probably be looking for more. We've had a bunch of play testers already, so thank you for all of you who've been giving us feedback on the game. We'll probably be finalizing the design and maybe taking some pre-orders. Hopefully we can take orders before the election and then ship the end product before Christmas. But yeah, those would be my 3 takeaways for you. Number 1, the whole landslide myth, or at least I would call it a myth. I think Ron would say, well, technically he won, which is true. But it wasn't a landslide. Point 2 is how if we wanted to change the rules, it just seems so hard because you got to get everybody to hold hands and jump at the same time, which is not something we're really good at. But if you have ideas on how to implement or support proportional representation, let me know in the comments. Would love to spread the word if you have a better idea. And then point 3 is Nerds for Democracy, the game, is well underway. And I want to do a shout out to Spider Mang from the Yang Gang, who is helping us with some of the art. So excited about it. Stay tuned. And if you are interested in playtesting or putting in an early order, let me know. I would love to get you on the list and get you priority access. With that, I'm going to say bye, nerds. Oh, yeah. And if you want a summary of long live streams like this, subscribe to nerdsforhumanity.substack.com. It's a free email newsletter, and you don't have to sit through an hour-long live stream to get all the goodies. But of course, as you know, sometimes the live streams are kind of fun. Bye, nerds.